All right. How we doing here? Oh, what's up, everybody? We are live on we're live on Instagram.
We're so live.
So live. I can verify that.
I don't hear anything coming in, so I think the thing is muted. Hello to Instagram. Hello. This is Crossing the Streams, where we answer the universal question: what should I binge watch next? You just watched something and now you got to watch something else. Well, you've come to the right place, because we're here to tell you some great stuff you should be watching. This is episode 138. That means there are 137 hours of TV binge watching suggestions just waiting for you on our YouTube channel. Can't believe it ourselves. If you comment YouTube on Instagram, I'll DM you a link and you can catch up on all those. You can watch it on Instagram, all that kind of good stuff as well. We got a great show for you today. There's just three of us today.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be a hoot. We're gonna kick off with the theme song. If you can read it, feel free to sing along at home to the tune of the Brady Bunch. Zach, kick us off.
Well, here's the story of some lonely fellows who spend way too much time watching the TV. And all of them have jobs and friends. Well, not really. Just between you and me.
Oh, Bob, your turn.
They made a live show out of their hobby, every TV watcher's TV watching dream. Jeff, Ron, Sal, and Bob. And there's Marcy and Zach. They call it Crossing Streams.
All right. And then one day they went live on all the platforms. You can hear the people laugh and shout and scream. Still can't find another word that rhymes with platform. But man, we cross the streams. Everybody at home.
We cross the streams.
We cross
the streams.
That's the
way we do it here. We cross the streams.
All right.
I figured with just three of us, we might get that.
If there was like a young person who wanted to be a comedian and had a wish, it was like, I wish I had the perfect voice for a comedian. I feel like your voice is what they would get. And that is not an insult at all. Like, the majority of things that you say just sound funny. And then I realize I'm not sure if I'm supposed to laugh at this or not. I'm not sure if that was funny. But you have such a great voice, and I love hearing it as often as I can.
Are you talking about Jeff or me? Probably Jeff. Yeah.
Jeff.
Yeah. Jeff has an interview and comedy voice.
You have a get off my lawn voice. Jeff has a comedy voice.
I was recording something and it was supposed to be serious, and then they're like, so we're like, and then it was actually for my company's campaign. I was standing there, and they're like, can you stop using your TV announcer voice? I'm like, what? This is how I talk. They're like, that's not how you talk.
Yeah, it's like you fell in love with your voice crack in high school.
You ever see that Louder Milk scene where he goes in to get milk and goes, how can I help you? And
yeah.
He goes, oh, I'll have the milk. Why are you talking like that? Why are you talking like that? This is how I talk. Nobody talks like that.
Yep, I've seen that.
Love it.
Oh man, that is hilarious. So,
I have a get off your lawn voice. Okay.
Oh, we're just rocking. We're rocking Detroit. We got so many people. All right, so everyone watching at home, we're going to talk about some shows, and if you are familiar with them, comment along on Instagram. I'll read them. If you're on YouTube or anything, I'll put them up on the screen. We got Lee is here. Hello,
hi, Lee.
We got
good to see you, sweetie.
Jerry. Jerry's here.
I'm a total sausage. That's true.
Yeah, baby.
On Instagram, we got my loan officer, Tim Bryan. We got Airbnb Detroit, who has the best Airbnbs in town, from what I hear. Best of Detroit. All of Detroit is here. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us. So, what do we got? So, last week, if you want to check out episode 137, we talked about Jawman, A Disturbance in the Force, which is a documentary on the Star Wars holiday special, and Father Figures. Today we're going to talk about Fast and the Furious, Reacher, and Echo. So a couple of those things. We won't spoil anything for season 2 Reacher. Don't worry, because we know that's in the mids of
Okay.
everything going on. So, Bob, did you want to talk about Bob and I did comedy before we get into the first show. Was it last week or was it 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
How does time go by?
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. So I worked with an amazing group of comics that Bob put a show together. I'm not gonna say I was underpaid, but
it's called the Sal and Bob Show, Jeff.
it's called the Sal and Bob Show. But I
we
was
do once a month.
I was Sal in this
Yeah.
particular show.
Uh-huh.
That was a lot of fun. It's a packed house, and you get food, which I got to
Yes.
say, for those of you aspiring to do comedy, you don't get food a lot. Hey, Mark.
Correct.
Mark Kronig's in the house. Cliff is here. What's up, Cliff? And so, you know, so that was great, and it's a good meal. It's like normally like a
good
place where you go to see like a dinner theater thing, and so
Yes.
it's like
Dueling
a real
pianos, drag queen bingo, and then they outfit the theater for us for the Sal and Bob Show, and it's a blast. And you did great, man. That's and you asked me, you know, every week you ask which show we're going to review, and I told you I was going to review your set, and you didn't believe me, but I am going to review your set.
well, because no one's seen that or can see it.
Well, it's you got video, but anyway, I just thought it would be fun to recap your winning triumphant set at the Hole in the Wall Theater.
Right up into the very end where I said, all right, we're going to bring up the next comedian. Someone went, good.
Oh, that guy. Oh, you know who that guy is? He's there every month, and he always says something stupid like that.
I said, don't worry, sir. The next people are speaking Spanish, so you should be able to understand everything.
I remember that. It was a nice retort.
But he spoke English. See, so that's what the joke was.
Yeah.
That,
he was playing
maybe a different language he'd find funny because he didn't understand the plain English.
Yeah, he was a dummy.
Zach's confused,
but he also was playing along with
in the moment. It made sense.
I speak Spanish, so I didn't get it.
Do you?
Well, I mean,
well, you do, but you're not the one that said the comment either.
Yeah,
that's true.
But it was fun. It was a good show. Going first is like a different thing, and I hadn't gone first in a long time.
That's why I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
To break down what a comedy show is and your part in it and how you rescued us from not having a host.
I know.
Where's Zach and Bob's usual setup?
And it's great now because if everyone who watched the Golden Globes, you can see what happens.
Oh, yes.
When you have a bad host.
Timely.
And it's like, ooh, my goodness gracious. So
well, see, you and I disagree on that. I disagree that Joe Coy was a bad host. I think that if there was a crime, it was as a performer blaming it on other writers that he said, he said, I wrote the funny jokes. That was lame. The rest of it,
was part of him being the host.
Yes. And so if you're going to be the host and you're going to, if you vet the jokes and you say, okay, I like this, you got to do it. And you can't say, well, that wasn't mine. So that was the only problem I had with him. I thought, can we get into this now? Is that all right?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I thought the main problem with Joe
comment
Coy,
along if anyone has a comment on this. I'm sure.
Yes, please comment because it is a kind of a hot button issue in the comedy world now. Having done a million MC sets and feature sets and headline sets, I looked at that audience and everybody was blaming Joe Coy. The problem was not Joe Coy. The problem was that audience thought that he wasn't a big enough star to be standing up there and poking fun of them, because 90% of the people who tuned into that had never heard Joe Coy's name before. Everybody knew Ricky Gervais and Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. So if you looked at what was going on in the crowd in his first few jokes, and they were cute jokes. They were as good as anything Billy Crystal did on the Oscars, I thought. But you looked at Harrison Ford, he had this look of derision on his face, like, who are you to be talking to us? Look, we're A-listers. Well, you were married to who or dated Chelsea? That's what I thought was the problem. Honest to God, I think they were insulted that they got what they thought was a B talent for their A night.
Jay Beth, what's up? I disagree with you. See,
I know you do.
I I think he was hitting above it, hitting up, and he didn't earn to go after, say, a Taylor Swift or anyone in that audience. Nobody did know who he was. I feel like I am pretty in tune with pop culture and had no idea who this guy was. And not that it could be a nobody. It's an opportunity, right, to turn that around. But you got to play the room as well. If you watch the Ricky Gervais monologue, that 10-minute monologue that's going around again
Perfect.
now, right? The audience's reaction is exactly the same as Joel Coy's reaction.
Yes.
Not one person wants to hear one word that Ricky Gervais is saying, though it is one of the greatest
Yes.
monologues in the history of anything.
It really is.
But the difference is, one, Ricky Gervais is one of them. But two, forget that for a second. He owned it 100,000%.
He did.
Joe Coy never owned that room. You know, as a comic, when you give up that moment where you let the audience know you aren't in control,
Yes,
and you're afraid, it's over, and you rarely can get it back. And when he slipped, I feel like when he did the Taylor Swift joke, we're at the end, and he goes, because there's other people here. Well, first of all, nobody's manager, nobody's friend in the world would say, hey, your first thing out, go take a shot at Taylor Swift. I mean, it's like,
I don't know. She's the hottest thing going. It was such a mild joke.
It wasn't against the NFL. It wasn't even a good joke. This is what the joke should have been, Bob. The joke should have been like, oh, look, Taylor Swift is here. My kids adore you. My kids adore you. They told me if I wanted to be seen on this show, I should go stand next to you.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
But the thing is that he like
pandering.
But he also backed
that's
down.
What the host is. It's to make everyone feel comfortable, not attack the people in the audience.
Well, he also backed down.
That's what you do. If you're Joe Coy, unknown, you have to come in with a different game plan.
That's fair.
mean,
but you know,
Tina Fey and Amy Poehler were Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. They didn't come in and be Ricky Gervais. They did their version of who they are.
Well, I mean, you don't know Joe Coy, so you don't know if that is his style.
You're kind of proving my point.
No, but you don't know who he is, so you can't. So he has to kind of come in.
They didn't go with him.
Just be that middle ground.
My big problem was that it was very evident when he knew he was failing and he could not really recover, and that was visual. But also, like, if you're a comedian and you're going to take on people like a Taylor Swift or, like any of those, A-lists out there, you either got to back it up or completely just say, like, look, it's a joke. He was explaining his jokes afterwards, being like, that wasn't a joke against Taylor Swift. That was a joke against the NFL because of how many. And you're like, look, if you have to explain your joke afterwards, you failed. Just own up to that. You know what I mean? Like, just say, hey, I was doing my thing. It was a failed joke. Because no one's going to crush it 100% of the time, especially having days to prepare and being 3 hours long. That's an incredible amount to put on a comedian. So I got to give him props for putting it together. But you could see that he knew he was failing a lot of the time, and that was palpable. And just from what I saw,
it's got to be your responsibility if you're going to go into an event like that, where everyone else allegedly turned it down because this is a horrible gig and this is what happens, right? It's like singing the national anthem. Everyone's going to complain. But you got to go in and be you. I mean, from what I understand, that's not him. You know what I mean? I've seen other things. I don't want to get into that, but whatever. You know what? He tried. It didn't work out. I'm sure.
One last thing I would like to say about this, and then I'll get off of it. All this nonsense about him being misogynistic and everything, it was such a bunch of horse shit. There was no misogyny in any of this. He made fun of Barbie, the movie, but he was making fun of how Hollywood, treats character actors as opposed to stars. That's what his point was.
I think it was the boobies comment, which was a different one. It was. I don't know. It wasn't the greatest. I get it.
It wasn't. It's not.
And in the comment where he said he blamed the writers and said all that, forget that he blamed the writers and how horrible it was. It speaks more to the fact that he went in unprepared. or the right. It wasn't like anything that anyone was confident about and walked in, because if they were confident, then they would have, you wouldn't have said that. That's not a fallback for when you're being self-confident with the material that you have.
You know what it reminded me of? He was treated the same way Michelle Wolf was at the Washington Correspondents' Dinner several years ago, when all the Trumpers just hated on her, palpable hate. She was funny as fuck, but they were like, "Who are you coming in here and talking about our God this way?" They would not accept anything she said.
But that's going to happen, and that's I think that's a little bit. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I just think she was asked to do a thing, and she did it. She did it boldly, and they were like, "We don't even know your name. Well, who are you to come in here and talk about Cheeto McFuckface this way?" Sorry, I'm dropping it.
All right, let's move on, since you're. All right, let's talk about our first show. Let's talk about Echo. So Echo is the latest entry in the Disney Marvel universe. Take it away, Zach.
Thank you. Yeah, so I work in a vacation town, and normally it's very busy, but because I work at the beach and it is awful outside, I had a week's off of work, and it has been awful for me. So I've been binging everything I can possibly get my hands on, and today Disney released their newest entry into the MCU, and it's called Echo. And if you are a follower of the MCU, then you'll know this character from Hawkeye, which was the one series before the last series about Hawkeye and Miss Hawkeye. Echo was kind of a standout star. She was a character who was deaf and, from the indigenous peoples area of the world. We didn't really get a lot of her background, but
did you say deaf? DEAF?
She's deaf.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's deaf. Right. She, what you learn in Hawkeye is that she's deaf. She is a Native American. She has one foot. She lost a foot. She has a prosthetic foot. And just is this powerful warrior, right? So that was in Hawkeye. If you know the comics, and you know that Echo is a big standing daredevil foe / anti-hero. She is amazing and has some wild powers in the comics. Now, doing a little bit of research on this, I found out that the writers wanted to kind of change the character a little bit. So she used to be in the comics, she's Latino and also South American. Now she's mostly Native American from the Choctaw, I guess, tribe out of Oklahoma, which is interesting. I actually learned a bunch of weird things. I found out the word Oklahoma means red people. I didn't know that.
Wow.
So I just watching this show and doing some research for this show that we're on right now, I learned a bunch of really cool stuff. So I'm always excited to come on here because it makes me do more research into things that are nowhere near important, and then my wife hates that I do. So so Echo, it is a show, came out today. They put all 5 episodes out, which is different than a Disney Plus thing. Usually they do once a week and you get 8 or 10 episodes. So you get all 5 at once, which is pretty interesting. Now, the thing I noticed immediately was instead of the comic book flipping pages to let you know who this is, they do it's a new opening. It's called Marvel Spotlight. Now, what they're doing is they're trying to create shows that are in the MCU without the MCU-ness of it. So they're trying to do more street level things, kind of how Netflix did their Marvel, the Daredevil, the Luke Cage, Jessica Jones. So I think they're trying to get back to that. So it is in the MCU, but it's not cosmic, and it's not way too big, and there's not stupid characters that you could tell are forced in there for no reason. It's a pretty solid, tight story about Echo, who unfortunately, when she was younger, her parents, they both died in weird ways. And she was raised by the Kingpin. And the Kingpin in comics is one of the coolest bad guys ever. He was originally a Spider-Man bad guy and then kind of reached out to being almost anything that was street level and New York based, mostly Daredevil towards the end. So Kingpin kind of adopts her, but kind of emotionally manipulates her a little bit into being an assassin because he's having a hard time with Daredevil. So what we do in the show Echo is we follow Maya Lopez while she has to face her past, and she reconnects with her Native American roots and embraces the meeting of family and community if she ever hopes to move forward. So she's kind of struggling because she lives in a couple different worlds. When you learn about people that speak ASL and the deaf community, they actually refer to people that hearing as the hearing world. So you have this idea of people that live in 2 worlds at all times. Now, Maya Lopez is a Native American. So that's a world that she lives in that I don't live in. She is deaf. She is a female. She, you know, has superpowers. So there's a bunch of things that she has to deal with that she is really dealing with on her own. So a lot of what she's doing is reconnecting with her family. And I think that what we learned, if you watch Miss Marvel or even Blue Beetle, I think what people are learning is that the family dynamic of the superhero makes a lot of the show. Like, that's the stuff that people want to see. There is spectacle that you're expecting, but it's the family dynamic. It's the struggling of the normal person, I think, is what makes a lot of superheroes cool to watch. So in this, you actually get some amazing character actors, one of which is Graham Greene, who's one of the best actors of all time. You might know him from Dance with Wolves or Maverick or even Snow Dogs, depending on what you watch. Amazing actor. Now, every single person in this show learned ASL on their own time to be able to speak with the main character and be able to instruct her name is Alaqua Cox, and she is a deaf actor with one leg. So great casting, obviously. But she does speak ASL. So everyone learned ASL to be able to communicate with her, which is awesome. The things that I saw, so I'm only really going to talk about the first episode, even though I did watch all 5, because I think the pacing is a bit odd. A couple episodes are great. Episode 1 is great. I'll say that. As far as TV shows breaking my expectations, this was one of them. Like I said, it's the Choctaw Nation is what they reconstructed her background origin to be. The cool thing I found out is they actually gave all the scripts to the Choctaw tribe to make sure that what they were saying about their culture, about their people, about their customs was 100% accurate. And this is the first time that a show or movie has been completely dubbed in Choctaw. So if you're in that community, you can completely listen to this entire thing. Easy peasy. Similar to Daredevil, the fight scenes are super great. There's something happened when the Jason Bourne movies came where all fight scenes in movies became like cut, and you really can't tell what's going on. It makes it seem like it's bad acting or bad choreography. Then Daredevil came along and it gave us that beautiful like 9-minute hallway scene where it's supposed to be just one long shot of him fighting a bunch of people. So in this show, you get a lot of back and forth, but then you get to Maya Echo's first mission. And it just gets thrown into with these 2 hitmen, and they don't speak ASL. So she has no idea what they're saying, but she just is like, I guess I should follow them. Well, immediately a fight breaks out, and then a 5-minute long take fight scene, which is stunning, really stunning, like dynamic camera movements, great choreography, all ends in that fight with Daredevil just showing up in a great Frank Miller pose, looking straight from Netflix show. And he just kicks a bunch of butt. And then, Echo has to fight him and blah, blah. So you get a lot of the family dynamic. You get a lot of her actual prowess with the mastery that she has of her martial art, as well as the specialness that comes with her disabilities. Deaf people have to pay more attention visually to things, so you can see her like watching how people fight to win. I thought that the show, like I said, it had perfect characteristics. It was Marvel that I love without the MCU that I absolutely hate. The sound design also really stood out to me because when you're getting the perspective of Maya, you have no sound. There's nothing. You don't hear anything, which is really, it's really interesting to see the way that she would perceive things. Like there's times where she's stealing a motorcycle and she sees like the police sirens, and then she's like, oh, looks up and and you could tell that, oh, I don't perceive the same world that she does. So it's cool to see when her perspective shifts into when the audience perspective goes around. So I thought that was really cool. And I like knowing a lot of other cultures, like apparently one of the origins of the Choctaw Nation was that they were formed from clay, like clay pottery, and then kind of buried in this cave. And then one woman got them out of the cave. And once they left the cave and sunlight touched them, their outer shell cracked and it exposed the human. And then they lost all their special powers. Well, Maya is supposed to be a descendant of that. So once again, I thought that episode 1, almost a perfect episode of any series. It does drag a little bit, but you get a lot of Kingpin, you get a lot of our stuff. It turns out to be a pretty good show after just 5 episodes, so it's not a lot to dig into. I thought that it felt different, it felt new enough for Disney, and I was very impressed with it as its totality.
So, is this how they normally work, where they're introducing a new character who will eventually go on and play a bigger role in the MCU in the movies? or is this a standalone TV thing?
I think so. I think that she's mostly a TV character. I think what they're going to do with TV shows is kind of build up the new street level big bad. I think Kingpin is going to be the MCU's new street level big bad, and I think that it's going to go, he'll be the big bad for a couple different shows, maybe a Daredevil, maybe a Luke Cage, maybe a Punisher. I think they're going to redo those, and then I think that he's going to be a Spider-Man villain in the movie. So I think these shows should really build up how bad the bad guys should be, and then the movies should see last ditch effort of what these heroes have to do to solve this problem. So that's what I'm hoping.
So what does she do? Echo, I am giving, given the fact that the show is called Echo, I imagine she has some, I don't know what, like porpoises, right? She can, echolocation.
Yeah.
And know what's going on before other people do. The porpoise.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
The point of the name Echo is that she has the echoing powers of her generations behind her. Okay. So from the very first woman to all the way up to her mom and her grandmother before her grandmother. So it's like an echo of all these women that have learned something and have gained these powers, and then she's able to channel the echo of her existence. So in the movies, it's more based on the lack of sound and that kind of thing.
So did Marvel go out? So this character has one leg and is deaf, and then this was written in comic books or whatever. So they actually went out and found a deaf person, an actor with one leg to play her.
So in the comics, she doesn't have, I don't think she has one leg in the comics. In the comics, she is deaf and she has mystical powers. It just turns out that Alakwa Cox was a Native American, ASL speaking, just absolute badass when it came to martial arts. She ironically or unironically or just whatever, coincidentally, was just missing a foot. So then they wrote that into the character to make that more of a hurdle for her as well.
Yeah. See, I am more interested in that, in the MCU on that level than any of the stuff that it's just gotten so stupid. The movies are failing now. And DC has just been a mess from the start. But this is the premise of this is very interesting. This is one I'll watch.
Yeah, I think that MCU and even DC were just hoping that comic fans would just come and watch everything, but they didn't really expect people to really break their movies down and realize like this actually isn't very good. And when you give us god level beings, it's hard to relate with them, but it's also not interesting to watch. I don't care if two Supermen are fighting each other. There's a way to make Superman stuff interesting. It's just people don't want to take the time to make an interesting show. This is an interesting show because the characters in this show are dynamic, thoughtful characters that make interesting choices and are not god level that it doesn't really matter what happens. She's a struggling woman that is trying to take over Kingpin's full arsenal, but also get back in touch with her grandmother because her dad was a bad guy and she got kicked out of the family. So street level, very relatable. To a degree, but at least that first episode,
gonna watch.
I would say is a definite watch.
All right.
I'm convinced. I'm gonna watch it.
All right,
and I'm a hard sell on that.
Everyone, Aaron, what's up? JMR, Brian, MCC podcast are joining us on Instagram. The Gram. Woo! We just talked about Echo. If anyone has any comments or have seen it.
Ask me some questions,
Zach. Now, the only thing I'd ever heard about it, Zach, was that it wasn't good, but I haven't heard about that now. But way back, it was like such a disaster they considered not even releasing it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that they dropped L5 at once, at least the rumor I'm making, was to make it go away faster.
Yeah, I heard the same things. I heard when She-Hulk came out and then the Daredevil reveal, people were like, oh, that's dumb. Daredevil's a cuck or whatever they were saying about Daredevil when She-Hulk came out. And I think with how the last 3 MCU movies didn't do that well, the last 3 TV shows outside of Loki were not that good. I think they lost all faith in anything that they just could not understand. And I think it took them this long to realize you got to scale it back and you got to get back to street level things that people can try to connect something with. You can connect with losing a family member. You can connect with, losing a friend. You can connect with having somebody with a disability that's struggling with something. You can connect with somebody getting pulled to the wrong side of the tracks. So I think that they're making smart moves without a lot of confidence.
Okay.
And I think that they also blew up how much Daredevil was in this show, by the way. Like, they made it seem like Daredevil is going to be in it. And outside of episode 1, he's not. But you do get a lot of Vincent D'Onofrio, which is one of the best castings of any project that is comic book based ever. The way Vincent D'Onofrio has changed his body to just embody Kingpin is so cool. And he's just top tier actor.
Well, he was Edgar suit. He was an Edgar. It's an Edgar suit.
Well, you're right about one thing.
Yeah, that was great.
He should have won an Oscar for Men in Black. He should have won an Oscar.
So good.
Sugar.
It was so good. I mean, that was one of the greatest things ever.
It really was.
He's great.
All right, let's talk about Reacher. We're going to talk about season 1 of Reacher. Season 2 is midway right now.
That's the way I look in a t-shirt, by the way. I just want to let you know.
I know. So I'll say up front, I've never read a Reacher book. I will say up front that I've never seen a Tom Cruise Reacher movie. So the first one I understand from 2012 is supposed to be enjoyable, and that the second one, Jack Reacher Never Go Back, didn't fare as well with the critics. Now, the general comments on the Tom Cruise version were that he didn't match the character in the book of Jack Reacher at all.
No.
It's like Jack Palance playing Mary Poppins. It was that incongruent. I'm sorry. I don't know what
No, it's I
never rub another man's rhubarb. Favorite Jack Palance.
This new Reacher, starring Alan Ritchson, who I loved in Titans. I was a big fan of him in Titans. He is now Reacher. And so season 1 is 10 episodes. It's on Amazon Prime. And like I said, season 2 is ends next. I think just 2 more episodes to release for season 2. So what do we got to say? So Reacher he's a character who's complex yet intriguing, who likes to kind of see the country on his own terms, meaning he walks around wearing only the clothes that he has and a toothbrush. And, if his clothes get dirty, he throws them out. He buys new clothes. He lives on his pension check. And he pretty much has no roots anywhere. But when I say he's huge, he's huge. He's like he's a wall of a man. But none of these things should make you think, because he truly does have a sense of justice and loyalty. Man of few words, which makes you wonder, is Alan Richardson a good actor or not? Because he's not talking a lot.
He's stoic.
Very stoic. Yeah. He's got dry wit, and Reacher always seems to do well with the ladies, at least in one episode. And he is, when I say he's a skilled, he's a fighter like you wouldn't believe, but he's also a very smart investigator. He's like, I guess if somebody were to write a novel and say, what's a man? What I think a man is, he can do all these man things. I think that's Reacher. But so he's he stumbles into this first season, and it's a mystery, and it's based on the first book in the Jack Reacher series. So if you read the book, you would know Killing Floor. And it follows the adventures of Jack Reacher. He comes to Margrave, Georgia. He stumbles in here because he's a blues fan, and he was looking for the home of one of his blues artists people or something, as they explain. And then he stumbles upon a murder. He's convicted. He's accused of murder, but by coincidence, it happens to be stop me if I think I'm going too far with this, but the murder of this is all in the beginning, right? But
Mhm.
it's the murder of his brother, who coincidentally he stumbles into a random town and he hasn't seen his brother in years. They made it sound like years, but here he is now solving his brother's murder by pure coincidence.
Mhm.
So, which is interesting, but it's an interesting town. I think they built that up interesting. The characters are good. I like you got Roscoe Conklin, Willa Fitzgerald, and you got Oscar Finley, Malcolm Goodwin, who the detective cop who is there, and the local cop, and I think they're awesome. And the whole thing is like, won't he get a piece of peach pie? I mean, it really is. You're really invested in it throughout the entire 10 episodes.
And he wants a piece of peach pie.
Oh,
the
more
best.
than anything.
When you walk into one of those diners and you see certain foods, you know they're going to be good.
So it's like Woody Harrelson wanting to get a Twinkie in what was that
Yeah.
movie? Yeah,
in
okay.
Double Tap.
Yeah.
Oh
Can't think of
yeah.
it now.
What's it called though? Why?
They were funny. Yeah, I can't remember the name of the
Zombieland.
Zombieland.
Oh,
There you
yeah.
go.
So
Such a good movie. What was it? Could not remember that name.
and then Zombieland Double Tap was the
Yeah,
follow-up.
Double Tap.
This is good. I mean, I enjoy Reacher. It's kind of mindless entertainment. Everything, like Suits gets solved pretty easily. They're like it kind of just goes along. But I will say at the end there were a couple nice little twists in the story of where you thought things were going to go and then they go in a different direction. And I got to tell you, the violence, if you like violence, oh my God, you are in for a treat because they do not hold back with the violence. You ever watch one of those first player games where like you're shooting people and you shoot someone and their head just blows out? I mean, that's the level of
wow. Okay.
I mean, it's like a video game violence. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, and so, and there's no shortage of it either. I mean, there's no shortage of extreme violence. You saw. I enjoyed it a lot. I am now watching season 2, which I won't discuss because I think my goal here would be to encourage you to watch season 1 and then you'll, I think, drift into season 2. Season 2 is one thing I like about it is that it's very different. It takes place in a different time frame, and it's
like a flashback or a flash
no. It takes place in the future. I mean, they move forward. It's a different story.
Oh, okay.
Meaning it's not like he's still in Margrave, Alabama.
Okay.
By coincidence, the same town comes across another mystery. You know what I mean? It's not like that.
Yeah. So every book he walks to town, finds a mystery, solves the mystery, gets rid of his clothes at Goodwill, and then goes to the next town, just walks to the next town. So that's kind of how the premise is in all the books.
He doesn't drive.
No, he doesn't drive.
He walks. No. Okay.
That would involve paperwork. He doesn't do paperwork. Yeah.
It's always leg day.
Yeah.
But the best scenes in Reacher, which I think is the one thing I do remember from a clip I saw of the Tom Cruise Reacher, so I know he did this, and is like when there's 7 people, and like and then he just confidently looks at the 7 people and go, which one of you is gonna die last?
Yeah, right.
Or which or something like that, and then he just kills them all.
Yeah,
he's like two of you are gonna run away once I punch this guy's face. Yeah.
The one line that I loved in that Tom Cruise movie, and he was all wrong for Reacher, but they somehow made it work. It was an entertaining movie. When they go outside for him to do the ass whooping, he goes, "Remember, you wanted this," and I'm like, "Wow, that was convincing."
That's okay. I mean, there's exactly that type of scene. I did see an interview with Alan Richson where he said he wrote Tom Cruise the letter that apparently they wouldn't deliver to him or something.
Oh, to tell him that he shouldn't play the character?
No. That he was taking over the character of Reacher.
Oh, I guess. Okay.
And it was hard to kind of. It didn't seem like the impression you get was that Tom Cruise maybe wasn't that excited about someone
Well, I mean,
else.
Skydance still does the TV show, and that's Tom Cruise's company. So I would assume that Tom Cruise had to have known on some level.
All right. Hey, Fred.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're right. So, but do you enjoy it? It's mindless, fun, violent.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot more than I kind of wanted to. Like the Tom Cruise movies were fine, but they were like Jason Bourne, Mission Impossible kind of movies where you just get into a fight and then you solve a problem, you get into a fight. Reacher kind of does this weird thing where he just walks to town and then through like Batman, like Adam West Batman style, was like, wait a minute, there's a new statue. This statue's made of gold. You know what else is gold? That guy's watch. It must be the mayor. And it's like, where are you getting these wild leaps of like logic? But then you get like to me, the best scene that made me think like, I'm going to love this show was when he got himself put in prison to find like the rat guy. And then that prison fight scene, I was like, okay, this show is going to be pretty great. Cause that was one of the most brutal things I've ever seen is him fighting those guys in the prison bathroom. But all in all, I think once you get past that, why is he here? What he's here because of a singer that his brother maybe liked. I'm not really sure why he was there to begin with, because it was the jazz guy or whatever, the blues singer, but the blues singer wasn't playing there. That was just where he was from, and then it was the statue of the blues singer that made him say like, something's up with this town. But I thought that the characters, especially that tweed wearing cop, he was one of the coolest characters.
Cop.
Oh man, that guy's so cool. Roscoe was cool too, but I thought that the cop was an awesome character, and I thought compared to Reacher, it was the perfect like thing to put him next to. And I love the show, and I think that's what season 2 is kind of lacking is that tweed cop character. But we're not going to talk about season 2. But yeah, season 1, really A-list TV.
All right, I'm going to watch it.
I'll only say about season 2 that I'm enjoying season 2, but it probably should have been season 5.
Yeah, completely agree. If I'd have known any other characters in this, I would be way more invested.
Yeah. So, all right. So that is that. Fred has joined us. Katie Brinkley, Movie Dan, what's up?
Hello, everyone.
Page, Realtor Steve.
Oh, Realtor Steve's here.
Yeah.
He
never misses.
Oh, cool.
All right, let me see what we got here. So, all right, let's talk about, I'm sorry, I keep flipping around here. Let's talk about Fast and the Furious. And this is an open discussion on any Fast and the Furious because I'm not sure you can tell the difference between any of them. So,
well, you can tell the difference between at least 3. I can guarantee that.
Well, I think Tokyo Drift, I believe, is very different. But
Tokyo Drift is way different. 100% different cast. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And apparently number 3 is actually number 6. So once again, I have this problem where I dive into things and I have to just go at it 100%. I was scrolling through Netflix and I saw a Fast and the Furious animated series. I'm like, what's this about? I've never heard of this. Clicked on it. 6 seasons.
Wow.
6 seasons of an animated. And it's about Vin Diesel's nephew, who's a racer. And Vin Diesel voice acts in the first episode and not the other ones. I'm only 3 seasons in, so I'll tell you how that goes. Either way, that movie made me kind of go back, or that show made me kind of go back like, what is this series? Like, what is happening here? Like, we just had Fast X, right? And these guys,
family. I'm sorry.
Was that the one with Jason Momoa?
It is the last one is Jason Momoa, yeah, and it is family and Corona, and I can get down with both those things. But knowing that like they put a car in space and like they're riding down dams, I was like, what? How did this start? How did we get here? So I found out that you could watch the first 3 Fast and Furious on Amazon Prime. So I, put it in. Then I had to take myself back to 2001. I'm like, what's happening here? Now, in 2001, this movie came out. Now, this is among Planet of the Apes, right? The bad one. You have Lord of the Rings, the great one. You have like beautiful movies like AI. You also have Sorcerer's Stone. And then out of nowhere just comes a car movie. And no one's really caring about car movies anymore. Now, with this movie, you have directed by Rob Cohen, who directed Dragonheart and Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, which is fairly interesting. Now, it stars obviously Vin Diesel, Michelle Rodriguez in her second role of all time, and a very beautiful blonde Paul Walker. The one thing I found about this movie is that Vin Diesel wrote a 3-page letter to director Steven Spielberg expressing his admiration for his work, particularly in Schindler's List. Spielberg was so moved by this letter that he gave him a role in Saving Private Ryan, which is why Vin Diesel's in that. I thought it was pretty interesting. So mostly this is a very tight movie, right? It's tiny. It's about this Los Angeles police officer, Brian O'Connor, must decide where his loyalties really lie when he becomes enamored with the street racing world that he's been set undercover to destroy. It's Point Break. It's just Point Break in cars instead of surfing. So now I'm watching this movie, and Paul Walker's, who's a surfer dude, Keanu Reeves, and he's looking out for Vin Diesel, who's Patrick Swayze, this group. And they got a group of a bunch of, scumbags who are doing some bad stuff, but maybe Patrick Swayze is not a bad guy. I don't know. We got to tune in to find out. Well, it turns out Vin Diesel owns 3 tiny Honda Civics. They can go under trucks. You know what they're stealing? VCRs. And it's a big deal. The FBI, it is 100% VCRs. Now, he steals roughly 200 boxes of VCRs, and the FBI and customs are all over their asses. And they can only send the best undercover detective, Brian O'Connor, played by Paul Walker. So he goes in there, and he has to go to a greasy car shop to figure out how to get in with this family. La Familia. How do you do it? Well, you got to hit on Dom Toretto's sister. That's how you do it. So he starts kind of flirting with Mia, who's Dom Toretto, Vin Diesel's sister. And guess what? All of his guys like this girl. So now he gets in a fight with these guys. Now they're tussling like family. Then it turns out that they all work at this car shop. And then they get together and they need to get car shops to do other things to make street races. And then Paul Walker shows up to a street race for no reason whatsoever. And he goes up to Vin Diesel. He's like, I'll bet you my entire car I can beat you in a race. And he's like, what do you want in return? This is a $2,000 race. What do you want in return? This is a $2,000 race. Or something. I can't really do a Vin Diesel very well. But he's like, all I want is your respect. So then they race. And keep in mind, Brian O'Connor is an undercover cop trying to get Dom Toretto, right? Because he's stealing all these goddamn VCRs. And these truckers are getting so upset about the theft of these VCRs that now all the truckers carry shotguns. And they just shoot whenever they see a Honda Civic. And this thing is intense. So you get this family trying to learn how to love each other while Brian has to decide, well, my family, I can't turn them in, but I'm also a cop. So what does Keanu Reeves do? He lets them ride that last wave. And it's a perfect little movie. It is exactly Point Break. And I was so upset to find out about it once I clicked into it. So at the end, Brian gives Dom Toretto the keys and he lets him run away from the cops. And that's it. Now Brian's bad. He's a bad guy. And if we had to shoot into number 2, which is the most intriguing of all the Fast and the Furious. So number 2 starts and Brian O'Connor now is fired. He's an ex-cop because of what he did, right? And now he has to infiltrate a new gang inside of Miami. So who does he get? Tyrese Gibson. And the more I'm watching this, the more I'm realizing that I think that Brian O'Connor and Tyrese Gibson are ex-lovers. And they're talking about how they've had this crazy past and how Brian messes stuff up for women. And I'm like, wait, what's happening here? And then these guys wrestle and they wrap their legs around each other. I'm like, hey, what's happening here? And then they go and they have to go on all these reckless, endangering things. And they start loving each other. And they're like, hey, I got your back, bro. And I got your back, bro. And I'm like, what's happening here? And I watched all of Too Fast, Too Furious, realizing that Brian O'Connor is actually a bisexual man, and Fast and the Furious 2 is a romantic love story of 2 men who were ex-lovers that have a weird love triangle that just end up being friends, and they have to own an auto shop together. And that's gorgeous, and I love that movie.
At least it's not. At least they got a little more original than just Point Break.
Exactly. I would love Point Break too, where Keanu hooks up with Patrick Swayze. Give it to me. Yeah, I mean,
Ryan Kramer's
then number 3.
It's like 3 a.m. there. What's going on?
Oh, hell yeah. Well, if he has any insights on Fast and the Furious, too good for me, let me know, because I love it. Yeah, then the third movie, for some reason, goes to Tokyo and follows some other guy who can't stop getting into car races, and his army dad gets mad, so he sends him to Tokyo, where they learn how to drift cars. I don't understand why this is a movie whatsoever. Part 2 is actually directed by John Singleton, which is amazing. Wow. John Singleton did Boys in the Hood, an amazing movie. So you're like, there's something in here. And it's not in the text. The text is that they're just friends, maybe ex-con guys, don't know. But man, that subtext is spicy.
Carmen's saying it too. Brand new information.
I'm telling you, watch it again. Yeah, I actually heard about that. That is one of the things that really messed up the future of this business. It's these A-list actors don't want their the idea of them to get tarnished so they can't, like, Vin Diesel and The Rock have weird things in their contract where for every one punch that Vin Diesel hits The Rock with, The Rock has to hit him back. If one falls in their back, the other one has to fall in their back. And it always has to end in a draw. And it's just so annoying that these actors can't play characters. Like, anyone's going to take this like, well, The Rock's kind of a punk because Vin Diesel beat him, which is so stupid. I absolutely hate that. But yeah, I think that's what's wrong with
isn't
now.
there so much drama with, like, doesn't The Rock hate Vin Diesel? And then came back,
they're always.
Well, The Rock was
then,
also like I mean, it's all bad. But it turns out that Fast and the Furious is the largest, like the biggest earnings of a faith-based franchise that has ever existed. And it is considered a faith-based franchise because from 5 on, it all becomes about Dom's his cross necklace. There's talk about the eye of God. There's all this, God and La Familia through a holy lineage. So yeah, it is considered a faith-based franchise that I think now is trying to rival MCU. Earlier on, it was Point Break. It was low stakes, low level racing. And I really think they should have kept it like that, because now it's about having super big name actors that all have their one big scene, and it has to end in some death defying car grapple hook over a dam situation. And I just miss it when it was just two gay boys driving a car. Like, give me more of that. That is literally all I want to watch. Stop putting me in space. I don't want it.
Wasn't he like? Didn't they also have a feud with Jason Momoa that they didn't like the way he acted in the movie?
Yeah, so Jason Momoa was in the last one, and he is hamming it up. This guy controls the entire. Every time he's on on the scene, you're like, I don't really know what you're doing, and it kind of seems like he's trying to do like Heath Ledger's Joker mixed with just some weirdness. And there's like these scenes that they could film separately, because he's like, one scene he's just doing like a pirouette, and then the next scene he's like holding up two dead guys' eyeballs with tape so they can drink mimosas with them. And you're like, I don't really know exactly what's happening here, but apparently he is the son of the guy that they killed in number 5. So this is like,
Jesus,
that was bound to happen. That guy was bound to come back.
That's what I was saying. The same thing. You throw Jason Momoa in the water, that dude's coming back.
Let's all say hi to the commercial break and Brian Green, friend of the show. We need to have you back. And Fred.
Hey, Brian. Yes, and Fred. I have never seen one Fast and Furious movie ever. Not 1 minute of one. And I don't know.
I've seen some where like they'll drive and it's all about just made up now stunts and stuff like that. It's like
all just weird.
None of it's even close to like.
There's like crazy tech where they can shoot lasers from satellites, and they gotta and they literally take a car and drive it through a castle, and it lands on an airplane. You're like, okay.
And it's all about cars doing these things. The cars have to be a part of this.
Well, apparently, if you hit the NOS
about
button,
the cars, Bob. That is.
It's about the NOS, really.
Did you ever see Tenet?
Yeah.
Okay, totally off topic here. But I saw that movie and I was so angry that I had no fucking idea what was going on. Beginning, middle, end. I walked out of that theater going, I don't know what I saw. I just don't know what I saw. I wanted to like it. I wanted it to be good. Man, I think that's why I never watched the Fast and Furious, because there were so many of them and I didn't know where to jump in.
Yeah, it goes crazy. I can tell you
anywhere.
I mean, technically, like after 5, it does not matter. It's just like picking up like a Marvel movie and be like, well, I wonder what these random characters are up to and how much Corona can Vin Diesel drink. Like in the last one, you have Charlize Theron, you have Brie Larson. I think probably Ben Mendelsohn's in it now. Like every single person ever is in these movies.
Gal Gadot was in some.
Gal Gadot's in a few of them. Yeah, but I tell you, 1, fine movie if you like Point Break. 2, very fine movie. Very fine movie if you're someone like me who loves to look at subtext of movies.
Carmen wants to know what
you're right, Carmen.
To know what Cat Williams wants to. Which, by the way, if just side note, so you do recommend. We recommend you binge watch all the Fast and the Furious movies, and when you're done with that, just keep watching the Leprechaun movies. I promise those are amazing as well. I love.
I mean,
those.
they're not bad. Leprechaun in the Hood is pretty enjoyable.
1 through 4. I mean, once it gets into space, it's a
Yeah,
little
the space
weird,
one it gets a little weird. You're like,
Oh God.
it's a little too
but the
chilly for
original,
Leprechaun.
one, which is different, and
Mhm.
it's not the same as the other. They sort of, change it a little bit. But the
I love they
it's
put Jennifer Aniston.
Aniston.
They put her on the cover of that movie now. She's on the cover box.
Oh,
And
that's
she's
what
not really anything in the movie.
No, that's what they do with all the movies. When you used to go to Blockbuster, they'd be
Yep.
like, "What? Tom Cruise is in it? He was the driver in the one scene." And if they just, it was their first movie, and
Yeah, it's like, what? Paul Rudd is in Halloween 4? I didn't know that.
But yeah,
He was.
He is. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Well, Johnny Depp is in
Nightmare
the original
World.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, he gets the knife through his back.
Oh, he dies good.
He gets the best. That is the best, I think, in all the nightmares is Johnny's death. Yeah.
I mean, there's more blood in that scene than
than any elevator that Stephen King can design.
Anything at all. Awesome. All right. Well, I think what do we got? We covered what did we cover today? We covered Reacher. We covered
Echo,
Fast and Furious, and Echo.
We did not cover one thing though.
What was that?
I told you we were going to review
We'll do it next week. We
have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I would love to hear this.
Go ahead.
Okay, if Jeff doesn't want to hear this, this is a big compliment I'm paying you. So we do. I'm gonna do this very quickly and talk about the highlights. If you've been to a comedy club or a comedy show in a theater, the 3-man or 3-person setup was invented a long time ago by a local guy, Mark Ridley, very famous in comedy circles. And it's an MC who does 15, a feature who does 25 and 30, and the headliner does 45 to an hour. And it's a very hard business to break into, and we've talked about that on the show. And your first responsibility as a comedian, if you're going to get paid, is to be an MC, and it's the toughest job of anything on the bill. The middle is run and gun, bang bang bang. I'm out of here. Good night. And headliner is next. So it very often it's a thankless position because, as you saw, at the top of the show, we were talking about Joe Coy. He was the host, and he was in front of an audience who was predisposed to not like him, and they didn't. And we were still talking about it. So we're going to have disagreements on that as we go along. But like I said, I'll keep this short. I see we have 3 minutes. I want to compliment Jeff because this is the Sal and Bob show that we do once a month, and Jeff nimbly and deftly stepped into the host job after being a headliner for a long many years. And it's not an easy thing to do, to go up in front of a cold crowd. And I don't mean cold like they're unfriendly or they're just they're not fun people, but they have no idea what to expect. And so when you're first out of the gate, it's tough, and you got to figure out what they want. You got to figure out how to balance, the entertainment with a little bit of, goosing them a little bit, being a little controversial, but not overly controversial, because you don't want them to dislike you. You want them to have a good time. And Jeff really just walked the tightrope the whole time. And there was a and comedians, if you're watching this show, you'll know what I'm talking about. We had a person on the show who we weren't entirely sure was going to do their time and do it well. Controversial, maybe not the most friendly person. So I asked Jeff to also do time in between that person and the next comedian to dig out from what I thought was going to be a hole. And that's another trick you'll see done on shows, where you have a very friendly person go up and reset the mood after somebody who's not been an audience favorite to get the show back on track. So not only did he come out and open the show brilliantly, he did it with good humor, and then also did that very important hole filling exercise about 20 minutes later into the show. So I want to say a couple of jokes here. My favorite joke you didn't do that night, which is your daughter on the cell phone. I'm going to make you say that before we go. But one of we're running out of time, so I'm just going to say my second favorite joke of Jeff Dwoskin's is the Disney World joke, where I always love this because every parent in the crowd gets this and understands it if you've been to any amusement park. And the premise is if you and your family are getting along, do not go to Disney World for any reason whatsoever. It's going to ruin that, kill it. And he said, it's like, I'm paraphrasing your joke. For the first couple hours, you're like, oh my God, there's Mickey Mouse. Look, everything's great, And then later in the afternoon, you're like, get in the goddamn teacup. and I love the audience's reaction there, because up until that point, you're very low key. You're I'm not saying under the radar, but you're just slinging them in right here, bum bum bum, and they're enjoying themselves. And then you scream, and it shocks them a little bit, but then they go, oh yeah, that's right, I've been there. I know exactly what he's talking about. So anyway, just kudos to you. Thanks for more than ably stepping in and taking the bullet for our pal Sal.
Thank you, sir. It was an honor to be part of the crew. All right. Well, and it was an honor to hang out with you guys. And thanks to everyone who
Same here.
Joined us on the gram and on Facebook and Twitter and all that good stuff, and YouTube. So, Zach, say good night to everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Say good night.
All right. So this Saturday, another Sal and Bob show at Genetti's, the 13th, is sold out. So I don't know why I guess I'm just bragging. If you are anywhere in the Cherokee, North Carolina area on January 22nd through the 28th, I'll be at Harrah's Casino, bothering people.
I did a casino once. It was in the middle of the casino, and it was the open area. People are coming and going.
Yes.
And it's like all you hear is like ding, 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 ding,
Snoring
ding,
eagle.
Ding, 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 ding. And it's like, and then so you start talking over, you start trying to talk over the sound.
So awful.
You blow your voice out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I did that gig.
So today is Wednesday. Monday is my 300th episode of Classic Conversations.
Wow.
I'm pretty excited about
Fantastic. That is a big library, sir.
That is fun. So, all right. Well, that is that. And we'll see you all next week. And that has been another episode of Crossing the Streams. Join us every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Facebook and YouTube. Follow The Jeff Dwoskin Show on YouTube to be alerted every time we go live with your hosts, Jeff Dwoskin, Ron Lippett, Howard Rosner, Bob Phillips, Sal D'Amelio. We're all in the socials. Follow us, listen to our podcasts, Classic Conversations, and The Sal and Bob Show. Check them all out, and we'll see you next week and every week when we cross more streams right here. See you then.
Mickey's gone.